All right, so today we're going to dive into a real classic, Ari Kiev's The Psychology of Risk. We're going to try and figure out what really separates the great traders from, well, everyone else. And I'll give you a heads up right now. The answer has almost nothing to do with predicting the market. It has everything to do with the person you see in the mirror.
And Kiev, he just gets right to it, turning our focus completely inward. He basically argues that self-awareness, not your P&L, not your bottom line, is the real leading indicator of success. Think about that for a second. It's kind of radical, right? He's saying the most critical data you need to be tracking isn't on some chart, it's actually inside your own head.
And that brings us to the first, and maybe the most crucial point of this whole thing. In this high-stakes game of taking risks, the market, it isn't your biggest enemy. You are. Yeah, you heard that right. The real fight isn't with charts and price action. It's with your own human nature.
So why is that? Well, Keefe points out there's a biological reason for all this. You know our advanced frontal lobes, the part of our brain that makes us so smart? Well, it's also the part that can trap us. It kind of falls in love with itself. It gets attached to its own logic, its own stories, and that makes us totally blind to how our own biases are the real cause of our failures. We get really good at blaming absolutely everything else but ourselves.
Just think about it for a second. Be honest. Have you ever held on to a losing trade just hoping, maybe even praying it would turn around, totally ignoring your own rules? Or how about this? Have you ever sold a huge winner for a tiny little profit just because you were terrified of giving it back? See, that's not a strategy problem. That's your internal enemy calling the shots.
So, where does this enemy even come from? Well, according to Keefe, we're all running on some seriously ancient software. We've got these invisible scripts in our head, developed decades ago, that are just completely wrong for the environment we're in today.
And he has a name for this programming. He calls it your life principle. Basically, it's this unconscious template of beliefs you build as a kid just to make sense of the world. And back then, it was great. It was designed to keep you safe. But now, as an adult, it's totally invisible, and it's secretly pulling the strings on every move you make.
And this really gets to the core conflict, doesn't it? On one side, you've got these automatic, fear-based childhood responses. And on the other, you've got the conscious, goal-oriented mindset you know you need to succeed. It's a constant battle. And what's crazy is that most traders are operating from that place of fear without even realizing it. And then they wonder why they're not hitting their goals.
So you see the problem, right? These mental models that once helped us survive, that kept us safe, they've become a cage. They literally warp our perception of risk, of reward, of reality itself. We stop seeing the market for what it actually is, and instead, we're forced to look at it through the distorted lens of our old fears.
Okay, so how in the world do we break out of that cage? Well, the key, according to Keefe, is to stop trading your feelings and start trading the market. And that means you've got to learn how to navigate that intense emotional storm that trading and risk-taking kicks up inside all of us.
And listen, this next part is maybe the most important distinction in the entire book. Your feelings, fear, greed, anxiety, they are not the problem. They're totally normal. The real problem is your automatic, unconscious reaction to them. The goal isn't to become some emotionless robot. It's just to stop letting those feelings be the one to pull the trigger. So Keefe gives us a really practical 4-step process for this. First, you got to recognize the response. The tight chest, the racing heart, the physical signs. Step 2, objectify the feeling. Step back and name it. Okay, this is fear. Just observe it without judging it, like a scientist. Step 3, and this is the hardest one for sure, is to just let it pass. Do nothing. Just let it exist and fade away on its own. And then finally, step 4, once that emotional storm starts to calm down, you refocus on your plan.
There's this really raw confession from a trader in the book that it gets right to the heart of it. So much of our destructive behavior is just a mask, right? It's a front we put up to hide these really deep fears we don't want to face. And that's where mastery begins, with the courage to just be honest with ourselves about that.
Okay, so once you start to get a handle on your internal state, you can make what is probably the most important shift of all. You move from being a reactor, someone who's just constantly getting thrown around by the market, to becoming a creator, someone who proactively defines their own results. But how do you actually do that? Really, how do you stop letting the market dictate your emotional state and start imposing your own will on your performance?
Well, the answer is deceptively simple, but it is incredibly powerful. You declare a goal, you promise yourself the result, and then you trade in terms of that promise. Every single action you take is now aligned with achieving that one thing.
That goal becomes the organizing principle for your entire process.
There's this amazing metaphor in the book for this. Keefe says, you toss the ball out in front of you, and then you swim towards it. I just love that. See, instead of just being pushed around by the waves of the market, you throw your goal out there into the future. And that target, it creates this kind of gravitational pull. It literally pulls you forward through all the uncertainty and all the fear, giving you this incredible sense of direction and purpose.
So, what does it look like when all these pieces finally come together? Well, it looks like the master trader. This is the mindset, the approach that truly separates the best from the rest.
And believe me, the difference is stark. It's night and day. The high-risk trader doubles down on losers, just hoping they'll come back. The master trader, they cut losses based on a plan. The high-risk trader gets their conviction from a feeling of euphoria or a hot tip. The master gets it from deep analysis and a process they can repeat. The amateur is always trying to hit a home run, while the master is just focused on consistent profitability and discipline.
You know, the master trader really lives by a specific code. They're constantly asking, what more do I need to know? They learn from their own emotional reactions instead of being controlled by them. They have the stamina to just stay with the pain when things get tough. They prioritize self-awareness and good habits above everything. And they focus on their process, not just the outcome. They know when to get big, and they know when it's time to get out.
And this quote really nails the ego shift that has to happen. The master trader would rather buy something after it's already gone up $10, just to see it go up another $2. It's the same $2 profit, but with way less pain. See, the amateur needs to prove they're a genius by catching the exact bottom. The master, they couldn't care less. Their goal isn't to be right, it's to be profitable with the least amount of stress possible.
So what this all comes down to really is a simple but powerful truth. Mastery isn't about predicting the market. It's not about finding some magic indicator. It is, and it always will be, about mastering yourself. That's the whole game.
And so, that leaves us with one final question for you to really think about. Forget the charts, forget the news for just a minute. Look inward. What is the one psychological barrier, that one piece of old programming that you need to break to get to the next level? Because finding that and breaking it, that's where the real breakthrough is waiting for you.